confusion came from two places. Number one, that leisure, that leisure for us is something that the way that I'm trying to define it is a little bit foreign. And then also from my own confusion between figuring out like the difference between leisure and work. Now here's what I'll say, and I want to talk for like 3 minutes and then get questions if it's still confusing. Here's something that is a bit of what like I walked through last night. I want to explain it. So us, work and leisure, two different occupations of life, two sides of the same coin. Total work is very different than this. At times in our life, these things, and I would even suggest it looks like this too, that we can do two things, right? So like maybe this is reading, maybe this is school, right? Maybe this is sports. That we can do two things and they be work and leisure at different times. The thing that I was trying to get at was that I kind of came to last night is that I was trying to say yesterday, we can do it, but it's different. Work and leisure can never be the same thing simultaneously. If I said that, which I probably did, I was wrong. Work and leisure, I think, sometimes naturally overlap. So when you're talking about like the writing of a book, that if it starts out as leisure and then you sell it, that does not make it not leisure. Work has a direct product. Leisure doesn't necessarily have a direct product. Sometimes we do it for the sake of doing it, but there are also times that we can have an indirect product from it. It's not the reason that we do it, but it might be something that we do. So I gave the example in the last class that I was thinking about of like if Wildman and I start a podcast, just for the sake of fun and just for the sake of it, right? And ended up, it getting picked up and we make millions of dollars. That doesn't make it not leisure. Those are the moments in life where our work and our leisure connect and they become one. That is what you would call a lucky person. Sometimes it doesn't end up that way, where work is different than leisure, but it's not total work. It just isn't the exact same. Because sometimes we just do it for a product. Another times we do leisure for the sake of doing it itself. That's where work and leisure can be different. But when we talk about when they overlap, like with what you and Josiah were talking about yesterday, it can be the same thing. And I think ultimately both of those things, what we were talking about of engaging with life, producing joy, life-giving, that's beautiful. When work does not become life-giving, when like joy is removed from it, it becomes total work. When joy is removed from leisure, I think it becomes a distraction. Like when it's not life-giving in that sense. So that's why I would say like video games might not be the best example of leisure, though again, I might be able to, I'm willing to be proved wrong about that. Like that's not a hill I'm going to die on, but I think that it can be because it's not life-giving in the sense that like taking a walk with a loved one or like having a conversation with a friend is. It's about connection and about engagement. If it's not, then it's probably about distraction. This is where like binging Netflix comes in. Like you're actually disengaging with life. But again, you could watch Netflix and watch a movie. I watched The Social Dilemma. Have you guys watched it on Netflix? It's all about social media and not about like it's the devil, right? Like about how it tracks you and like the algorithms and like what social media is designed for. I watched it last night with Kim. Horrifying. But that was life-giving for me. It was terrifying, but it was life-giving. It was leisure. It wasn't distraction in that sense. So watching Netflix can be, one thing that we do. But in one way, for one person, it could be leisure. For another person, it could, not that it's work or leisure, but that it's just not either of those things. It's for entertainment's sake. It's for distraction. It's for checking out, right? The question becomes, okay, well, is there space in our life for those moments of like checking out, but is there actually is it good for us to do that? I think that's a thesis statement waiting to be written. Yeah.
Would you say that someone, like teenagers, for example, because we don't really have a job that we need to make a living for, but would you say that if go to work, and after school or something, and then in that moment, like I'm treated like total work, and then I like go home and experience leisure. Do you think that's a thing, or do you think like if you did that, then it would read into your entire life?
If I'm understanding, which is what I'm trying to offer, total work as being a liturgy that is the water that we are submerged in, then I think that it bleeds into our other areas of life. But I don't mean that to say by that like I don't think that you should work as a student because this is your job. Traditionally, school is supposed to be leisure. What? Because what's the purpose of education, as we talked about like on day 3 in Worldview? Awareness, selfhood, self-realization. That is all this. It's rediscovering who we are, our humanity. The difficulty is that sometimes like that's what this class I hope is about, even though it's also work. And so that gets to the heart of what I did not articulate well yesterday and why I wanted to take these first few minutes is that work and leisure can be the same thing. That's why school is both of those at the same time. Or it can like ebb and flow towards one or the other. But if you work, great. I don't think that necessitates like a culture of total work. Because you can still see your job as being something that gives you joy and you happen to get paid for it. But I think if you have a job and you're getting paid for it and you have the job to make money, it just means it's work. It doesn't mean that it's total work. Because sometimes like you have to have a job outside of school because you help your parents pay for bills. Not everyone has that experience, but I know that some people do. And that's not a culture of total work. You're doing what you need to do. But it does just so happen, too, that you might view it as like this is a literal hell that I am in. If that's the case, might not be the healthiest thing. That gets into a real tricky situation of like, well, if you need the job, that's hard. But that's also why I said if your work and your leisure interact and they overlap, then you are considered to be a lucky person. Even if you're a high schooler going to work at, the Energy Shack or, some ice cream place. It might be miserable, but also like there might be moments where you get joy out of it and it is life-giving. That's up to you. That's why I think that it's not the what we do, but it's the how or why. That's a great question though. Okay, what do you guys think? Any questions? Because yesterday I was a bit frustrated with how we left because I knew that I wasn't getting across what I needed to get across. So I appreciate your guys like persistent questioning and challenging of it because it helped me to go home and be like, okay, I need to figure out what I'm actually trying to say. And that helped me a lot. So I appreciate that. Okay, fantastic. Let's see. I don't know if Hannah is still on, but if not, I'm going to stop streaming. It's study time, Hannah.